Good evening. Welcome to our Grand Blanc Township Board meeting for Tuesday, October 1st. If we could all rise for the pledge, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Clerk Robertson, would you please call the roll?
I would be happy to call the roll. Trustee Hugo.
Here.
Trustee Fike.
Here.
Trustee Raridan.
Here.
Trustee White.
Here.
Treasurer Kilmer.
Here.
Myself here. Supervisor Bennett.
Here.
7 members present, a quorum.
Thank you. And now we will entertain a motion for approval of the agenda. Motion by Mr. Fike,
Motion by Fike,
supported by Mr. White.
supported by White on the agenda. Trustee Raridan.
Yes.
Trustee Hugo.
Yes.
Trustee White.
Yes.
Trustee Fike.
Yes.
Myself, yes. Treasurer Kilmer.
Yes.
Supervisor Bennett.
Yes.
7-0, motion passes.
Okay, at this time, we will open the floor for public comment, and we ask everyone to complete a public comment card and that they would keep their comments to 3 minutes or less. So first up, we have Miss Alice Grover. Good evening.
Good evening. 6405 Prairie Dunes Drive here in Grand Blanc. I commented several meetings ago that I was not happy how few people of those in office had filled out the League of Women Voters things, and I'd like to report tonight nearly everybody has. So I'm very happy about that. I'm glad to see that those have all been done. And I also have a question on tonight that I'm sure somebody will answer. What are flock cameras on Dort Highway? Other than that, I'm satisfied for the evening.
Thank you. You know, your comment prompted us to check our emails, and actually a number of us, I think they it either ended up in our spam or we didn't get them. So we appreciate you pointing that out, and I think we contacted the person in charge and were able to get those completed. So thank you. We'll talk about the flock cameras again as well tonight. Okay, with that, we have Mr. Jeff Joyner and Mr. Larry Anderson. Okay. Oh, okay. Good evening, Mr. Joyner. Okay.
Talk about. Good evening. My name is Jeff Joyner, and I live at 6454 Kings Point Road. I'm a board member of the Kings Point Neighborhood Association and chairman of the Special Assessment District project. Our project of expanding our storm sewers, milling and paving the roads, and restoring the neighborhood to its former self is nearly in completion. With the newly paved roads, we've seen more individuals, young and old, getting out with their bicycles, scooters, and rollerblades. I've seen an increase of families walking with strollers and riding bikes. There are more people walking their dogs. There is an element of positive change brought about by this project. As we wind down, it is important that we finish with as much enthusiasm and commitment as when this project started last fall. With fall fast approaching, there are some elements that may seem to be languishing as time draws short. One item, landscaping. Just last week, the new culvert along Belsey Road was landscaped with new dirt, seed, and straw mesh. This was a welcome improvement. However, the Thread Creek side of the culvert has a 6-inch rise in the ditch as you get closer to the creek. The water cannot flow uphill. So there's no way that the water going through that culvert, coming down Belsey Road, will ever get into Thread Creek unless we have a ton of water that just goes over that 6 inches. I've been inquiring about having the county do some ditching to remedy this problem, but I've not been able to get an answer if this is in the county's plans. I understand that the township needs to request this service. I sent emails out to the relevant individuals at the Township and County on September 26, but I've yet to receive any reply on if any of the ditching has been requested or is going to be done. Some areas that were excavated last year had some dirt and seed placed late last year in the fall. From what I understand, the contract with the county that stipulated that there was to be 3 inches of topsoil spread over areas of excavation. From what I understand, 3 inches was not provided. There are properties that show obvious settled ground that is lower than the rest of the lawn that was not excavated. When the culvert area was landscaped, there was one resident who has complained about the manhole structure in their front lawn because it was higher than the other manhole structure in their front yard. There was dirt placed around that manhole covered at the same time that the culvert was done. And it was graded and everything else, so it flowed nicely down. However, the rest of the front lawn remains untouched, and I have a picture of that in the document I gave you, Mr. Bennett. This seems to kind of make a mockery of our residents that expected their lawns to be restored. There are other lawns that still haven't been touched yet, and you can see, the settling of the ground lower than their lawn. There are 157 households that will be paying around $5,500 each for this project. Finishing this project on a low note as opposed to a high note will diminish the whole project in and of itself in the minds of the people in the subdivision. At the contractor, and this may be something that's just informational. As I understand, the bid was awarded to the lowest bidder, which is normal. After the award, it was found that the contractor had priced the plastic pipe when the bid specified concrete pipe for the storm sewer extensions. There is a significant cost differential between the two types of pipe. The contractor was provided the opportunity to back out of the bid, but refused, which presumably would have them start the Kings Point project with a budget deficit. It would seem that the Road Commission would have identified this as a problem and awarded the bid to somebody else. I have to wonder that if the township was part of awarding of bids with the county, this kind of situation might have been addressed sooner. I hate to sound like Game of Thrones, but winter is just around the corner. Winter is coming. So it's important to get things wrapped up sooner rather than later. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Jeff. Yeah, we'll address some of those. I don't know if Mr. Anderson wants to bring a few of those concerns too, and then Mr. Lima to.
Add to that if I may.
Okay. Okay. Yep.
I like that shirt.
Yes, go blue. Most of my wardrobe.
Yeah.
Larry Anderson, 6545 Kings Point Road. I was part of the association that petitioned for the roads to be done in our neighborhood. Glad to see that finally come to pass. It took a while. I've sent some pictures. The first picture you'll see is some big concrete culverts. This was back when the project first started, and I'll explain why I've shared that. I came home from work, and one of my neighbors jokingly said, "Look what they did to your lawn," and I, with a smile, said, "Hey, I'm glad they're starting. This is great." I said, "It looks like Stonehenge, but I'm good." So they have those concrete basins for the storm sewers laying in my front yard. And I wasn't even concerned about it. And then if you look back on the first page of the stable demonstration, when they removed them, they broke, in the picture, there's 3 different spots. But just picture one where they busted up the concrete with the skids of the fork truck. Picked them up. Came home from work and noticed this, and there was a gentleman, I don't know his name, from Genesee County Road Commission. They had the yellow vest on with the road commission on it, and I said, broke the curb. He said, yep, we're going to take care of it. Thank you. Doing a great job. I commented on that and went back in the house. A few days later, I come home, and you'll see on the second photograph, they went to Home Depot or something like that and bought a bag of Quickcrete ready-mix concrete and slapped it on there with a trowel. That's how they fixed it. And I know it was Quickcrete because I picked up a big section of paper from the bag in my front lawn that said what it was. I was kind of disappointed in that. The concrete on that curb, although it's not brand new, it was solid and in great condition before they started. Now it's busted in 3 spots. The third picture on that packet I took today, just before I came to the meeting. You can already see there's a great big crack down the middle. After this winter, when it freezes and thaws, and we get some spring rains, the curb's going to wash away. I'm going to have a hole there, and the county's going to say, well, sorry, it's not a mainline road. That's not our problem. I don't like that answer. I really don't. I know it wasn't brand new, but it certainly wasn't broken before they did that, okay? And nobody will answer my question on that. There's a section, I don't have the address of the home, I can get it for you. There's a home down the street from me where when they tore up the existing asphalt, they discovered the soil mix was basically muck. Even the concrete truck, that the trailer that they pulled to mill the concrete with, sank and got stuck. It found out that one of the homes on that street had a sump pump that was draining to basically a sand or gravel basin about 15 feet off the road, and that had washed everything away. We got I believe it was a grant, Scott, we got to put in storm connections so all these residents could tap into it. They discovered this guy's sump pump wasn't connected. Nobody knocked on the door and asked to connect. Nobody said, a few residents voluntarily did when Jetstream distributed a flyer. They just dug down deeper, dumped more gravel in there, and put down asphalt. Now, if you walk by that 3 or 4 days after a rain, you can still see water coming up through the curb in the asphalt. You can literally watch it bubble up from underneath, where this guy's sump pump is just pumping the water into that muck. Kind of feeling a little awkward about it because this gentleman is one of the administrators for the Grand Blanc schools, and my wife's on the school board. So I didn't want to be the guy to knock on his door and say, hey, can we talk about connecting? But I had to do it because nobody else would. So he's going to do some remodeling on his patio, tear up his lawn a little bit in the spring, and he said he'll connect then. He actually told me, he goes, well, if somebody had asked, I would have done it. Nobody asked him. So we got this huge grant for the township and the county to put in sump lines and then ignored people that aren't even connected to it. And now it's damaging the road that all of us in that neighborhood are going to pay for the next 10 years. So I was rather disappointed in that. So that was the gist of what I wanted to explain to you guys tonight. I certainly hope somebody can come through and fix the curbs in front of my house, and I know there's others in the neighborhood too, where ready-mix concrete is not what I was expecting for when I agreed to pay for this millage. So, thank you.
Yeah. And I've got to say, I have walked through with Mr. Joyner and Mr. Anderson through their subdivision and witnessed the sump issues draining out onto the street. One problem that we're going to need to address with the road commission is the whole issue of sump pumps, because I don't know that the road commission can't address it or won't, but the whole idea of sump pump draining out onto roadways is happening numerous places throughout probably the county as well as just our township, but I think they probably would have the authority, I would think, to address that because it's their road, and we have a number of streets that those sump pumps drain out onto that we don't have the authority, it's not our road, but so we need to get the road commission to do something on it, but so far they claim they can't. But Mr. Lehman, I know you worked on this a little bit. What are your thoughts?
A couple things. One of the sump collector system, when we had them work on the sump collector system, that is 100% paid for by Grand Blanc Township. That doesn't get into the special assessment district. And we did have work on the sump collector system as part of the Kings Point project. I'm not sure about this particular one, but we'll look into that. On the other one, on Mr. Joyner's concerns, the project is not completed yet. They still have a punch list of items. I know that the Road Commission has been in negotiations with the contractor, the general contractor, for quite some time. I'm copied on the emails to go back and forth. If I'd have known this was going to be a topic of discussion, I would have had Mr. Boggs here this evening, who's also been working on it, trying to get it done. This project has been a point of frustration. They billed us for our 50% of it to start the project last August, and then didn't get the project started till this spring. So from the Special Assessment District, we're just going out for the bonds on October 15th now to pay the township back for already putting our money out to get this thing started for over a year ago. So there was frustration there. As to the comments on the contractor, you're absolutely right. If the township was awarding the bid would not have gone to that specific contractor because of our experience that we had with him on the Baldwin Road project. Unfortunately, the Road Commission doesn't allow us, even though it's being paid 100% by township residents on these special assessment districts, they have to follow their own policy. And when the bid awards came through, me personally submitted a request that they did not award it to the lowest bidder. Like the township does, we say the lowest qualified bidder. And if we have experience with a bidder that we know isn't in our best interest or in the best interest of the residents and taxpayers of this township, we do not use them. So we specifically asked the Road Commission not to award the bid to this contractor, and we were told they have to follow their own policy, which is to award it to the lowest bidder, regardless of whether they're qualified to do the project or not. So there's certainly a frustration part. We share your frustration, Mr. Joyner, on who they use for this project. I can guarantee you it would not have been awarded to that contractor had the township had the opportunity to weigh in on it. I have made the request to the Road Commission that if it's being fully funded by the township residents, that they should change their policy to include that the township, since they are paying 100% or less the engineering and then the 10% contribution, but the residents are really paying for their own repair, that the township should be able to look out for our residents' best interests and have a say, or at least have some kind of weighting on who they award that bid to. But we've been rebuffed at every attempt at that, just so you know. It is something that we'll continue to explore with the Road Commission. I appreciate the pictures and bring this up because we are going to go back to the Road Commission that the project isn't 100% complete yet. They still have holdback on it. They're arguing with the general contractor on a whole variety of items, including what they were billed for, what they had provided for in their bid, and then which part of it included the amount of topsoil that they say they brought like 4 times more than what was in the bid. They didn't have permission in the first place. It was a subcontractor to the contractor who provided that. The Road Commission has struggled with this project and this contractor from the get-go.
We've had issues just getting, like Dennis said, with the billing on the thing. They haven't closed it out, and it's presented a problem for us because, we want to go out for a bond and what have you, and yet the project, has been going on forever, but we need them to...
Tell me how much the project is. They can't tell me what the final is on it yet. They should know how much the project was at this point, since it's been 13 months since they billed me for the first installment. But I finally got their best guesstimate. It might be more, but it won't be less, so that we could get it to our bond counsel and municipal financial folks so that we could prepare the bond documents to be able to go out. It's been a frustrating project for everybody, but we won't stop until the Road Commission makes it right. This project isn't done yet, and they have to make sure that they make it right. Mr. Anderson, I appreciate the pictures of the curb too, because that's an embarrassment, and we'll make sure that those end up on the desk of the Road Commission. That is a part of the punch list repair that needs to be completed.
I took pictures and sent them over a few months ago as well to the Road Commission, but the issue of being able to have a hand in selecting the contractor, I know, is an issue for a number of other municipalities, because I've been at meetings with the Road Commission where that very issue has been brought up. And there's many others that would like to have a say in which contractors are chosen. But the sump pump situation is an issue that we need the road commission to address, because many of these subdivisions put in originally private sump collection systems that have, that are probably 30, 40, maybe even 50 years old in some of our subdivisions. And when those private sump collections systems fail, or somebody plants a tree in the middle of it, or puts a fence over it, what have you, now that water is ending up in the lowest spot in that neighborhood, which is often somebody's yard, and then it drains into either their basement or into the street. And so there's really no mechanism other than probably civil lawsuit between residents to get it resolved. And so we need somebody to address that too. I don't know if it's the Drain Commission or who, but that seems to be an issue that's pervasive as well. We probably see it because we have some of the oldest subdivisions in the county, and some of the largest ones is why we're seeing that issue. But it sounds like the road commission's continuing to look at it, but we need to put some fire under it to get this thing resolved. As Mr. Joyner, Mr. Anderson said, winter is approaching, and having water in the roadway isn't good for the roadway or drivers. So, thank you for coming tonight. And we'll get to the flat cameras too a little bit later. Okay.
Item 5.
We will move on to approval of the consent agenda at this time. Is there a motion? Ms. Hugo makes that motion, supported by Mr. Kilmer.
Other public comment?
I'm sorry?
Are there other public speakers allowed?
We didn't have any other slips, but,
Sorry, I just arrived.
okay, sure, bring it on up.
I'll keep it under 3 minutes.
Okay, all right, please,
So I guess it's,
right here.
thank you.
Yeah.
How shall I address you? Supervisor Bennett?
Sure, or our board, sure. Okay, Ms. Susan Elizabeth Fisher.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for listening to me again today. So I was thinking about the petition to fix our road, where it's dangerous for me to take my dog for a walk walk. And what I was thinking about is I like the idea of getting the road fixed, but financially, for the taxpayers, I'm not certain that 10 years out is a good idea. I was thinking of more of a lump sum or by like 2 payments, if I can get those signatures. And how exactly would I do the petition? Who would I talk to do that? Because I'm very interested in getting that petition going. And that's all I'd like to say, because I care about my community just like you do.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, thanks. Mr. Kimmer, if you can give her the phone number for who she needs to contact with regard to sitting down and going through the process, that'd be great. But they can make lump sum. You don't have to spread it out over 10 years, so. But that'll all be explained. Okay, thank you. Okay, any other public comment?
Consent agenda, Mr.
Any other public comment? Mr. Yancho, did you have a comment? Okay. All right, so we will close public comment and move to we approve the consent. We had a motion.
We have not voted, Mr. Supervisor. Shall I?
We had a motion and a second.
Yes.
Okay. Go ahead and roll
Shall I
call.
proceed with the roll call, Mr. Supervisor?
Please.
Okay. Trustee Fike?
Yes.
Trustee White?
Yes.
Trustee Hugo?
Yes.
Trustee Raritan?
Yes.
Treasurer Kilmer?
Yes.
Myself, yes. Supervisor Bennett?
Yes.
7-0, motion passes.
Thank you. Okay, under old business, we have our 2025 budget presentation.
You have the stick? You wanna
Yes,
put that?
yep, I'm going to bring it up right now.
Stand up so I can move around and I'll be happier. So, good evening. Normally when we do this, we bring all of our department heads in and go through just in case there's any questions. This year, just from a scheduling purpose, I couldn't even have the finance director here. She's out at a training seminar. So I'm going to walk you through the typical budget presentation. I do have a couple department heads here if we have specific questions that I can't answer or they can answer. And then we can talk about how we want to move forward if you guys want to have specific department heads here to go over specific portions of the budget. over the next 3 meetings or so before we're asked to, we're going to ask you to hold the public hearing, do the truth in taxation, and approve. Scott, if you would. So, and I'm not going to read through all this, but requirements for our budgeting process, again, formal budgeting is required. I know you guys know this, but for those folks watching at home, formal budgeting is required for governmental entities. Unlike the private sector, you can have a budget or not. Public sector, we absolutely have to. It's required by law. The adopted budget is legally binding for a governmental agency. Go ahead, Scott. And we are a statutory government entity, which means we have mandated functions. I always said tax, property assessment, and elections administration. This year I added governmental financial reporting because we have requirements that we have to report all of our financial dealings with both state and federal government. So those are really the mandated functions. You guys get money coming in from tax revenue and other sources. You got to do tax collection. You have to assess properties. And you have to run elections. So a lot of that, when you look at it, is assessing department, the treasurer's department, the clerk's department, critical. But we also have to have a finance department that is going to be able to do all of our financial reporting so we can be as transparent as possible and show people where the money came from and where it went. The discretionary functions, obviously, fire, police, planning and zoning, parks and rec, library, senior, waste hauling, road, cemeteries, public water and sewer. We like to say those are discretionary functions, but I think if you stop doing them, you'll find out that they're not really discretionary, they're mandatory, because I don't think there are 40,000 people who live in Grand Blanc Township view those as discretionary functions. They have to be done. This board determines through the budgeting process how that is going to be carried out. Go ahead. Budget goals for 2025, maintain or increase the current levels of service. We have and still continue to do the focus on the levels of service. Even going back when you think about the 2008 recession and how hard it hit us and the millions of dollars that suddenly disappeared from our budget over the next couple of years, we lost about 40% of our revenue. We've never cut services in all that time. The good news is for the last 12 years or so, we've had positive change after about 7 or 8 years of a negative drain on our revenue stream. We've slowly but surely been clawing our way back. It took 14 years to get back to the levels of funding that we had before the recession, and we're still able to maintain those same services. We continue to do so. This board adopted strategic plan initiatives, including, and without a doubt, number one, addressing unfunded liabilities. We continue to budget for that. We're building the new fire department and DPW facilities. In fact, that construction starts next week. The parks and recreation upgrades that we've heard about from folks, and the technology upgrades to keep us safe, expanding economic development opportunities, and budgeting for capital projects so we can afford to keep our capital, long-range capital plans planned for. That's why we're always looking out 5 to 7 years down the road. Go ahead, Scott. Strategic plan successes, improving parks and recreation facilities. All the tornado damage that we had to our pavilions, we've replaced all of the roofs out there and installed the new accessible playscape in 2024. We've got grants coming in to begin the upgrades to parking in 2025, thanks to Congressman Kildee's office, who shared some funds with us as well. And of course, as you guys are aware, the Embry-Cook pathway starts in 2025. The new DPW and fire facilities, all in construction, $21.4 million guaranteed. Maximum price at $21.4 to build those buildings. We're at $24 million to have both the hard and soft cost furnishings and everything else in there. That construction will begin on October 7th, which reminds me they would really like to have the entire board available sometime in the next week or so with the golden shovels and hard hats to get that project underway. We can talk about that date with everybody to try to secure a date that works for all of you guys. So we can get that project kicked off. The unfunded liabilities, of course, as you guys know from the reporting, 73% funded in the police department pension, including being able to put over $1.1 million in addition to the annual required contribution last year made a big difference. And the OPEB, the retiree health care funding at 96%. Just remember, it was 13% funded just 9 short years ago, 96% funded. Nothing short of phenomenal. It shows the taxpayers what you're doing with their money. You aggressively changed how those programs operated and who they were offered to. We went after the funding mechanisms. We've done the right things. This is going to guarantee long-term financial success, and that is a priority, remains of this 2025 fiscal year budget. And of course, economic development, the DDA remains a strong financial partner in incentivizing the new commercial investment. Look at Enterprise Park, and Tech Village is poised to begin construction. They're just completing the engineering on the road, water, and sewer as we speak. So the budget outlook for 2025, great news. State equalized value, $2.4 billion, up 11.15% over the prior year. The taxable value, up 6.97% over the prior year. 12th straight year, as I mentioned, of taxable value growth. Obviously, the challenges that remain, Headley rollbacks, we continue to look at. Proposal A, limits to growth that we can do. Personal property tax losses continue on and on, but it's, obviously the increased cost of goods and services along with the high inflation that we've all been experiencing over the last couple of years. State and legal requirements, this is really just there to say we know that we have to follow the Uniform Budgeting and Accounting Act and have a Appropriations Act before the end of the year, which is really critical because we don't have the authorization to spend money on January 1st of 2025 unless this board has gone through and passed the appropriations for the fiscal year 2025 budget. Our budgeting process starts in July when Finance provides the budget worksheets out to all the individual departments. They submit their budgets. We work together, the Superintendent's Office and Finance work together to walk through and look at all of the requests. We start holding budget review meetings and make those adjustments. We deliver the budget as your budget manager to the board every year before September 1st or on September 1st as required by law, no different this year. And again, the budget needs to be approved by you guys after review by December 31st so that we're prepared to or legally allowed to spend money on 1/1. This is really a description of fund types just as a reminder for those watching along at home. Governmental funds, proprietary funds. Our governmental funds include general funds, special revenue funds, the debt service and capital projects, proprietary funds of which we have water and sewer. Those enterprise funds or proprietary funds, they provide the goods or services, in this case water and sewer, to our residents in exchange for the charges. So your fees are based on, you have to have a cost recovery. You need to be able to demonstrate that you can pay for your water and sewer, both short and long-term goals. Right now, we've always delivered the DPW budget at a later date. We haven't gotten that to you yet. We're working through the rate model now to make sure that we factored in everything like the new building, the payments on the Kearsley Creek Interceptor Sewer Project that the board has approved participation in, but all of those will come together before the end of the year. This is a quick snapshot of your summary of revenues and expenditures by department. If you look at the overall operating revenues of $29.4 million, and obviously we deliver a balanced budget, your operating expenditures will mirror that. Obviously some of our biggest expenditures, like every municipality, goes towards those emergency response, first responders, police and fire. Again, it's not a big surprise here. We're spending nearly $11 million to offer police services. That doesn't include the additional funds we're putting on. It also doesn't include like the payment, the $700,000 allocated this year for the building, but that kind of gives you an idea of what the breakdown is and where the revenue comes from. Sure, our revenue is up. That's great to see. Don't forget some of that is going to be in bond sales as we do a couple of very large special assessment district projects in 2025. Wishing Well, Orchard Haven, both of those are over $3 million special assessment street projects. And then we finally just got the numbers since the budget's been delivered. We'll have to amend it to include the revenue that's coming in and the expenses that are going out to pay for the new construction on the DPW and fire station.
So if somebody were to say, oh, you have all kinds of new revenue, not really. That's designated monies from specific subdivisions for their projects.
Exactly. It's coming in and out for a very specific reason. And so, yeah, it looks like, oh my gosh, you guys have a windfall of $4 million. What are you going to do with it? Man, from 2023, you're up $9 million. We're we're up $9 million because we're taking in bond revenues and we're paying them out to do those projects. So it is a little bit misleading. It looks like, wow, we can't believe how fast we're growing our revenues, but you really have to take a look at the bond proceeds. And what's
Right.
This is quick for those who love visuals. Take a look at the general fund revenues. We talked about the bond proceeds. 24.4% of our revenues coming from bond proceeds. So that kind of tells you and supports what I just said about we haven't had a windfall of income or revenue coming in. It really has to do with being able to support the projects that we have moving forward. Property taxes for this account for 44%. Obviously, like usual, is our biggest one. Then state sources, that's a revenue sharing, about 16%.
So one that could change over the next year or so, or a couple of years, is that cable franchise. I know it's not huge, but as more people go to streaming and that kind of thing, and fiber, I don't know where that's going to go, but
It's smaller and getting smaller.
right. So we don't live on it, so okay.
And obviously, it matches up with expenditures. Like I said, it's a balanced budget. Police accounting for about 36.5%, fire about 7.6%, and then you see the various breakdown of the others. Providing public services, what we do encompasses a great deal of those expenditures. And again, it's not all broken down in here, but in your budget it is.
Very good.
Special revenue fund budget, which was also delivered, this just kind of breaks it down. That's an additional $15 million. I think one of the takeaways here is when you think about what you're being asked to do and you look at this budget, is it really shows that you guys have a $30 million general fund for next year and a $15 million special revenue funds budget. So you're really talking about a $45 million all-in budget that needs to be managed, in addition to the enterprise funds, which again you'll receive at a later date. But all in all, you're really talking about you people are responsible, you 7 individuals are responsible to make sure that we're doing what we say we do with a heck of a lot of money. And I know when people look at that all in, that's a big number. $45 million is a big number for special revenue and general fund. Add another $30 million of enterprise funds, and it gives you a picture of what you're responsible for. So those who are playing along at home, and you look at what the decisions that you guys have to make, there's competing interests everywhere. That's kind of what you're charged with. And while it sounds like a heck of a lot of money, because it is a heck of a lot of money, it is about delivering essential services. We're not doing anything frivolous in this budget. With all those competing interests, can you do more in parks? Can you do more in trails? Can you do more, wherever? This kind of helps you in your conversations with the residents of the community, because those are the conversations we have. Is like, yeah, it's a lot of money, but take a look at what we're doing and look at the services that we provide.
Well, and it's a balancing act, as you're stating, Mr. Lehman. I mean, sure, can we do more in one particular area, but let's figure out where we're pulling it from. So if we're going to do more in parks and recreation, where in the budget are we going to pull it out of?
Even like you look at this, it sounds $15 million of special revenue funds. Man, that sounds like a lot of money. Well, $7.4 million in capital projects because of things we have to do. Don't forget, a fire truck apparatus, the one we're going to order next year, $2.1 million. Those are things, and we're going to follow that up 2 years later with one that's probably going to be close to $1 million. So those are the things that you keep in mind. It also means we're doing the right thing from our capital projects fund, is because we're making sure that we're staying up on the things that we need to stay up on. We do not want to get into a deferred maintenance on any of the things we're working on. We made that mistake before with our bicentennial park, and we've been clawing back out of it for several years now, trying to fix it, with the help of the millage that the folks passed. So even that Parks and Recreation Fund, we don't, it looks like, oh my gosh, I spent $3 million on that park. We don't. A lot of that is capital. So again, grants and capital that are going to go in for us to be able to move that forward.
And, our budget is in very good shape, but I'm not sure, I know our board doesn't take it for granted, but there's several municipalities, large municipalities, unfortunately, very near to us that can afford new fire trucks and are aging out their fire trucks, from what I'm hearing. We're trying to stay within NFPA standards, and we are doing that, but there are other fire departments that are, their apparatus are aging, so.
Municipal Campus Project Fund you see up there listed just over $1 million. That is to cover the cost of the police bonds from when we built the police station and back in 2007. We're still paying those through 2031.
Yep.
And then what you're seeing is the first interest payment will be due on the bond that will be sold on October 15th to start the process of getting the new buildings built. It's just an interest payment, but we expect that to be about $300,000. That'll be due about a year from now. So that's included in your 2024
Right.
budget as well.
Yep. Okay.
So next steps. You guys have the opportunity to review all of the department budgets. Again, we will leave that up to the board. I can have all of the department heads here at the next meeting. I can have some of the department heads here. This opportunity for discussion. You could ask questions this evening. You can ask me to have specific departments here over the next few meetings. However you prefer to get the information works for us. We're here to serve. We will have to have the truth in taxation so we can show the millage rates that will go to pass this budget or support this budget. And then the public hearings and budget adoption, again, must be completed by December 31st.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Lemita. So our board, how do we want to proceed? We want to look at the budget and see which departments we would like to have represented at the upcoming meeting. Questions tonight? Any thoughts?
I'm personally
Dr. Reardon?
comfortable. I'm personally comfortable with Mr. Lemit representing the departments.
Okay. Any other, Mr.
Just had a
Fike?
couple of questions about the new fire truck. We don't have
Okay.
to do that tonight.
Well, I don't know that we have it all mapped out yet, though, do we?
We've got it spec'd out. We know how much it's going to cost. That's why I can
Okay.
honestly tell you $2.1 million.
Okay.
We are hoping that we could secure grant funds that would help offset that. One of the reasons being is because of low mod area that usually Grand Blanc Township doesn't qualify for a lot of the grants that we go after because of our demographics on income per capita. So that kind of hurts us. It's a good problem to have, I guess. We're in better financial shape than a lot of communities around us. But at the same time, when it comes to applying for and getting grants, it can hurt you a little. The low mod area is federal set by federal poverty guidelines, and they tell you if there's any areas in your community. Well, our new fire station up on this north end is actually in the low mod area, which can help us potentially qualify for grants. If we can get some grant funds, we can offset some of that $2.1 million. That would be awesome. But I'm not going to make any personal guarantees because I know how that grant stuff works. However, we do have an expert in the audience who is going to be one of the next things you talk about. So maybe she would like to make a personal guarantee of.
I wish I could.
But we do know which truck we're going to get, and roughly it'll be here next year.
No, it'll be Chief a 3-year build out. 3-year build out. 3 years. Like when we put the order in,
Yikes.
they get the chassis, and then it'll be 3 years for them to put all the various components and actually build the vehicle.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a long lead time.
And you save money typically if you pay for it up front, or at least a good portion of it sometimes, right? So,
We have reviewed a lot of they offer financing, but
Right.
I think probably the recommendation that's coming back to this board is that we pay for it.
right. Okay. Well, we'll figure out what we want to do and,
We'll have it on every
Consensus.
agenda until we pass it. So we
Okay.
will have opportunities for the board, every single agenda, now until the end of the year or until the board
Okay.
has felt they've hit their comfort level and they're prepared to move it forward.
take another look at the budget, and then email Mr. Lemit or myself if there's any particular department that you would like to look at closer, or department head that you'd like to have at the upcoming meeting?
Okay.
Okay. Okay, moving on to new business. Item A, the board will consider a motion to approve a one-year grant writing services contract with Lindy Davis Kirksey for the amount of $36,000 and authorize the township superintendent to execute all related contracts. Good evening. We have Ms. Roberts, Ms. Kirksey. Hi.
This item is for a continuation of services. We had created a contract with Linda last year to work on grant writing services, and so we would like to continue that into the next year, and that's what the motion is for.
Okay. How has it been going so far?
So far, so good. The grant writing process takes a while, as some of you might know. It's not something where you turn in a grant application and you get the money, 3 months later. It doesn't work like that. So our first one that we wrote together was for the co-responder.
Yes.
Our co-responder just started this week. So that's pretty awesome. We wrote
So we received a grant for that then?
We did receive the grant for that.
$283,000 to support that program.
How much?
283, I believe. Seven. Thank you. Okay.
Very
I'm thinking
close.
of the other one.
Yeah,
I'm thinking
you're
of the other
thinking of
one.
the other one.
Yes, on the funding for the park.
Yeah. And then we also wrote an AFG grant. We haven't heard anything on that. Oh, I'm sorry, Assistance to Firefighters.
Yes, our
And
acronyms.
That would be for the truck.
Say that again?
Aerial.
They received a lot of money last year through additional federal funding, and they take a long time, in answer to your question, to rounds. Now, notifications, we get the FEMA Go, their big newsletter where they tell us, okay, we're going to put out round 1, round 2, round 3, and then you go through these lists. Chief, you know what we go through, Kent, to see what's going on as far as that goes. But they said, we're going to have everything named to you by September 30th. Now, normally, Chief and Melissa would be receiving notification on the grant application. We have not heard boo. I always say no news is good news, and we were talking just before the meeting started, and I have a contact within that organization, so I'm going to just see where we are in that process. I don't believe they're going to be done. They were done by September 30th. I think because of this additional funding, we're going to have several more rounds. So I always say no news is good news. If we would have not made the cut, you know this from experience, we would have heard a dear fire department letter, So sorry, maybe next time. So I'm going to make a call to my contact to see where we are with standing. So it's the hard part. It's like pregnancy. You wait and you wait and you wait until you deliver, and you're hoping you're going to be able to deliver. So we should have some better information on that shortly. So.
And the other large one that we worked on was the Land and Water Conservation Fund grant, and that is for Bicentennial Park. That's a $500,000 grant, and we would put in a $500,000 match, which we have appropriate funds for that. And that's a huge grant. That's $1 million into the park. So that one's very exciting. We got our preliminary scores on that last week.
Very high, very
the week
high.
before, and they were very good. So we're very hopeful we'll get that one.
So it's like a scoring like 1 to 100 or something like this?
Actually, up to this, I think it's 430. I think it's the highest, something
380.
380 for this one. Okay, the last year's was 400. Okay, so we scored very high. Our grant coordinator's very pleased with that. We had several conversations. We got our preliminary score, final scoring. It's the Christmas present, the MDNR Trust Fund, Mr. Robertson. You probably remember this from your time at the legislative place. They like to give the announcement just at Christmas. So usually we're up there, like last year when you got the award for your trust fund grant.
The trail?
Yes. This one is always awarded by the director. We'll probably hear about this either before or after Thanksgiving. They always do it a month before the trust fund board meets, and the director makes the decision. So I'm pretty confident. Riley Millard, who is our grant coordinator, is pretty confident because the score was so high that we're going to receive our funding for that as well. And the other one that we have, too, that is the federal award. that's going before the Genesee County Parks. That's the $283,833.33. I remembered this because it's a weird amount, and that's the federal funding that we received. They're going before the county commission, the next board meeting, to allocate the award. So that should.
Very good.
So it's been they're a wonderful team. This whole,
Okay.
your whole township is to work with.
It sounds encouraging.
Is a motion in order, Mr. Supervisor?
It would be unless anybody has any questions.
I will make a
Okay.
motion on item 7A,
Okay. Support by Ms. Hugo.
supported by Hugo. Trustee White,
Yes.
Trustee Raritan,
Yes.
Trustee Fike,
Yes.
Trustee Hugo,
Yes.
myself, yes. Treasurer Kilmer,
Yes.
Supervisor Bennett.
Yes.
7-0, motion passes.
Okay. Thank you for your work on that. We're looking forward to lots of improvements coming our way because of that, your work. Thanks. Item B, the board will consider a motion to award the ARPA project senior center roof replacement bid to Lockhart Roofing in the amount of $56,200 plus any wood replacement costs, and authorize the township superintendent to execute any related agreements and contracts. And we have Mr. Kimmer here. Good evening.
Oh, good evening, everyone. If you recall, the Genesee County Board of Commissioners awarded, or is allocating $100,000 to every senior center throughout Genesee County. We had our committee identify 5 capital improvement projects. All 5 projects went out for bid. We're only going to be able to complete 3 of those with the $100,000 allocation. So the next 3 items on your agenda are relating to awarding the bids, one for the roof replacement, one for the senior center ceiling tiles, and for the interior painting and popcorn ceiling removal.
Okay. Mr. Fike?
This says ARPA project. Is this county ARPA dollars?
Yes, county ARPA.
We don't have any more ARPA dollars.
Ours are committed.
They're committed to the fire station.
Yeah, okay.
So yeah, the county had some money left over, so they're using $100,000 per senior center. Okay, so is Mr. White? Okay, making the motion.
Motion by
Ms.
White on item 7B,
Supported by Ms. Hugo.
supported by Ms. Hugo. Trustee Hugo,
Yes.
Trustee Fike,
Yes.
Trustee Raritan,
Yes.
Trustee White, Treasurer Kilmer,
Yes.
myself, yes. Supervisor Bennett.
Yes.
7-0, motion passes.
Item C, the board will consider a motion to award the ARPA project senior center ceiling tile replacement bid to Corey Zayas Painting in the amount of $27,908 and authorize the township superintendent to execute any related agreements and contracts.
I'll make the motion, Mr. Supervisor, if it's in order.
Supported by Dr. Reardon.
Motion by Robertson, supported by Raritan on item 7C.
Correct.
Trustee Raritan.
Yes.
Trustee Hugo.
Yes.
Trustee White.
Yes.
Trustee Fike.
Yes.
Myself, yes. Treasurer Kilmer.
Yes.
Supervisor Bennett.
Yes.
7-0, motion passes.
Item D, the board will consider a motion to award the ARPA project senior center interior painting and popcorn ceiling removal bid to Corey Zayas Painting in the amount of $15,300 and authorize township superintendent to execute any agreements and contracts.
I'll make the motion, Mr. Supervisor.
Okay. Supported by Dr. Reardon.
Supported by Raritan. Okay, very good. Trustee Fike.
Yes.
Trustee White.
Yes.
Trustee Hugo.
Yes.
Trustee Raritan.
Yes.
Treasurer Kilmer.
Yes.
Myself, yes. Supervisor Bennett.
Yes. Yes.
7-0, motion passes.
Thank you, Mr. Kilmer. And thanks for your work on all that. I know there's a lot of paperwork associated with that. Item E, the board will consider a motion to approve Resolution 24-37 allowing flock cameras on Dort Highway per the Michigan Department of Transportation regulations. We have Chief Rennie with us. Good evening.
Good evening. So I'll answer the question, what are flat cameras? So flat cameras are cameras that have license plate reader technology. So what does that mean? It means whenever a vehicle passes one of these cameras that is wanted by the police, whether it's a stolen car, it could be somebody that's a missing person, some child's kidnapping, somebody suffering from dementia that ends up driving away a vehicle, that's going to give us an investigative lead on where to look for that vehicle. And it's also going to alert our law enforcement personnel of exactly where that vehicle is at the time, so we could hopefully intervene and intercept that vehicle. So that's what Flock is. So, yes, sir.
What about a speeding ticket?
No, a speeding ticket will not go in there, so it does not detect speed. So what that camera is going to do is going to take an image of the license plate. It's also going to take an image of the vehicle. It will not take any images of any occupants within that vehicle, nor does it record in real time as far as like what speed you're traveling. So the resolution that's in front of you, we have been in contact with Flock. They have been going around the township as we speak. They actually installed 6 cameras throughout the township today. What this resolution particularly is that they require a resolution to be made on to install the Flock camera system on the M roads in the right-of-way.
State highways, basically.
Yes, yep.
Okay.
What does flock mean?
Where do they come up with the name? It's probably an acronym for something.
Yeah. I'm not sure if it's an acronym. It's, the company is Flock Safety, is what it's called. So,
All right. Ms. Hugo makes the motion. Mr. Fike supports.
Motion by Hugo on item E, 7E. Motion by Hugo, supported by Fike. Trustee White.
Yes.
Trustee Raritan.
Yes.
Trustee Fike.
Yes.
Trustee Hugo.
Yes.
Myself, yes. Treasurer Kilmer.
Yes.
Supervisor Bennett.
Yes.
7-0, motion passes.
Thank you. Moving on to future agenda items, I think we've got that covered with the budget talks, so we're going to move down. I believe we're going to need a closed session, but I'm going to, Mr. Lemiter, Mr. Laddie, any comments you'd like to make regarding that?
So we are going to need a closed session. We have at least one employment contract to consider, and also Mr. Superintendent Lehman is going to provide an update and perhaps a proposal for the fire department labor negotiations.
Okay.
Okay.
Any concerns, thoughts? Somebody care to make the motion, or?
Before we move to that, Mr. Supervisor, if I may.
Okay.
Just a brief item under board reports. We have mailed out better than 9,000 absentee ballots in the last four business days.
That's pretty significant.
The staff has done an extraordinary job. They were working this weekend on the processing thereof. We mailed out more today, but I know we're well over 9,000 now, approaching 10.
Very good. Okay. Well, please pass along our thanks to
I
all
certainly
those
will.
involved. That's a monumental task, mailing that many. Okay, anything else from the board before we make a motion? Okay, I'm going to make the motion that we go into closed session to discuss union negotiations and an employment contract.
I'll second that motion, Mr. Supervisor, if I may.
Okay. Yes.
Okay. Closed, okay. Trustee Hugo.
Yes.
Trustee Fike.
Yes.
Trustee Raritan.
Yes.
Trustee White.
Yes.
Treasurer Kilmer.
Yes.
Myself, yes. Supervisor Bennett.
Yes.
7-0, motion passes. We are moving into closed session at 6:59 PM.
Okay. I think we'll stay right here in our places.